Hello, everybody. It's Tuesday night. It's 7 o'clock, and we are live. Hello, everybody. It's Fat Tuesday night. It's 7 o'clock. And we are live. And the date is February 16th. And I have to tell you this because apparently last week I got the date wrong. So I made sure that I got the date right this week. So it is February 16th. It's Fat Tuesday. And welcome to V-Talks. Happy Mardi Gras. I hope everybody's having a great time. I do not have a mask on this evening because I wear a mask all day here, and I did not wear one here, but you know, it's 2021. Maybe next year we'll have a Mardi Gras party, who knows? But anyway, we have a great show tonight. I'm so excited. I have a very dear friend joining me. She is an amazing lady. She is New York City's Chaos Liberator. And she's made it her mission for 15 years to empower people to kick their life-clogging clutter to the curb. And she has been featured in so many publications. She's been in Real Simple, Women's Day, the Chicago Tribune, HGTV. She's been a contributor to Huffington Post. She's an amazing friend. So good at what she does, and I can't wait for you to meet her. So I'm going to bring Dawn Falcone onto the stream.
Hi.
Hi, Dawn. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm excited to be here.
I'm good. You know, it's so funny. We had this conversation earlier that the only way we could see each other is to do a show.
Yeah, because we haven't seen each other live in person in a while.
Right?
Right?
Probably like a year and a half or something, right? It's been a little bit of time.
It has. So I'm excited to be here. Hanging with you.
I know, right? And you look lovely.
Thank you.
And I've been crushing on your chandelier that you have back there. I know, right? So the first question I have for you that I think people want to know is, what is a Chaos Liberator?
So a Chaos Liberator is someone who comes into your life and takes anything, person, situation that is holding you back, that's making you feel stuck, that's making you feel overwhelmed, and they teach you how to get rid of that, whether it's a person, you know, a situation, or something physical. So that's what a Chaos Liberator is.
And I've known you for a long time, and you have a tremendous amount of experience in fashion design and interior design. Can you tell us a little bit about, your history there?
So I went to FIT, graduated from FIT, and always loved designing, decorating, bedazzled everything as a kid, and painted jean jackets, and so I just felt like a natural progression to go into fashion design. And I love fashion, and I love design, and I do interior design with my business. But the organizing part of it was something that I just did my entire life and didn't realize that people needed it and that it was a job.
And you've been successful at this in New York City for a long time.
Yeah, 15 years. So it really just, I grew up with a mom who was chronically disorganized. So if you walked into our house, it looked neat, but if you opened a closet or a cabinet or the refrigerator, anytime you opened the closet, you were like this because you never knew it was going to fall out. So I honestly spent rainy and snowy days, because it was New England, cleaning out closets and reorganizing, and I just did that because it helped me feel calm, I think. And
But a
I
good
didn't,
point, right?
yeah, it helped me feel calm. And I didn't realize that it was a job until later. It was actually like a cousin who said, hey, you do this for family. I was like, by that point, setting up when my cousins got married. I would go into their new houses because they'd go from their parents' house to the husband's house, very Italian. And I would take all their wedding presents and set up their whole houses for them and organize it all. And then one of my cousins like, hey, this is a job, I'm like, what? And so I went into business and started doing this in New York City and combine it with organizing and design. But you got to clear the clutter before you can make it pretty. Like,
Right. So that's the question. So what's the difference between being organized
right.
and clearing clutter?
So, first of all, getting organized is a skill that anybody can learn. And it
Even
just,
me?
yes, I am telling you,
I don't
anybody
know.
can learn this skill. It just takes time and it takes hands-on practice to learn how to do it. And look, some people are just naturally better at it, like me. Like, I was a weird kid. Like, Christmas, I would line up all whatever the presents I got under the tree, like it was like a Macy's display. Like, so obviously I was born with this, but anybody can learn how to do it.
Okay.
But I think the mistake that people make is that their New Year's resolution, right? Top 10 New Year's resolution, getting organized is always in it. And so they run to the Container Store and they buy all the stuff, right? They buy all the cute bins and they buy the folders, and they think that that's what's going to help them get organized. But the truth is, you got to get rid of the excess stuff first. You've got to clear the clutter first before you can get organized. And Americans just have too much stuff. The average American household has over 300,000 items in it. And I'm saying, as a parent, they're not counting like Legos, because my kid has like 300,000 of those alone. So like those pieces are everywhere. So you've got to clear the excess stuff first.
Yeah.
If you really want to get organized. And the reason that so many people don't get organized is because they skip that step. So yeah, we have to deal with clutter first.
Okay. What is clutter?
So clutter is defined as like a disorderly heap or assemblage or litter. I define it as anything that holds you back and makes you feel stuck and overwhelmed. And it actually comes from the Middle English word "klotterin," which means to clot. So clutter is stuck energy. And that's really important, because anybody who wants to bring new things into their life, whether it's a new job, a new relationship, better health, you've got to clear the clutter first. It's always the first step. Like if you're taking any kind of, manifesting course or like a money course, the first step is always clearing clutter. And that's because it's stuck energy. And you've got to clear the energy if you want to bring in other things and good things, and not the physical things, the deeper things. So that is what clutter is.
So in my kitchen, oh, you've been in my kitchen.
I have. It's not terrible.
You're kind. You're like, it is live. We're just going to give it a pass right now. So in my kitchen, it looks amazing. You walk in, right? It's nothing anywhere. You open a drawer, man. There's all kinds of little stuff in there. Mm-hmm. And I want to, just in my defense, like, this is how my brain works, and then you can fix me, right? So I'm like, oh, there's something on the counter. Oh, people are coming.
Right.
I just like, it's
right.
almost like it's not quite trash worthy, and I don't really have time to figure out a home for it. So I just throw it in there, and then it just keeps collecting and collecting, and then pretty soon I can't even get the drawer open. Right. And then I look and I go, well, this is going to be a day. And then I just move on.
But that's kind of the point, right? That's why people get in this cycle, is because they don't do all the steps. And you can't just shove stuff in a drawer, or eventually every drawer is a junk drawer. So you gotta set time, like I always say, if you don't schedule it, it's not real. If you really want to go through this process, you have to put it in your calendar, and you actually have to set time, and you have to do it, and there's actual steps to doing it. So the first obvious step is you sort. If we're going to do your kitchen, I would make you clear every drawer, and we would sort everything, right? So all like things go together. So all of your utensils, all of your, whatever you have, we'd sort them all. And that's a really important step, because you really need to see what you have, because no one really realizes how much crap they have, until you see it all in a pile. Right. So suddenly you're like, wow, I have 7 spatulas. Why do I have 7 spatulas? I didn't even know I had 7 spatulas. And so, that's why you have to do that process first. You've got to do your sorting first. And with women, especially with clothing, when we do the sorting, it's always eye-opening, because nobody really realizes that they have 300 pairs of shoes until you start sorting them out. And then I'm like, go get all your shoes. I know you have more. Where are they? And so you go all through your house and you gather your shoes, and like, why do you have 17 pairs of the same black high heel?
I know you have more.
Like, go get your winter shoes. Go get your summer shoes. So, that's the first step. Is you have to do your sorting, and you have to see what you really have. And then you have to get realistic about your life. If you don't even cook, you probably don't need 17 spatulas. 1 would probably be good. And then you can let the rest go, So it's a really important step that a lot of people skip. And I mean, people, it just takes time to do this. And I don't know, you got more time now, you're home.
Right, exactly.
So now's the time to do it.
So what type of impact does this have on people's lives when they have all of this clutter that they're kind of hiding a lot of times, right?
Hiding a lot, yeah.
Yeah, they're hiding.
So the average American wastes 55 minutes a day looking for things that they own but can't find.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So that is about 12 days a year that you're just like gone, gone from your life. It costs money, too, because if you are disorganized, let's say in your bill paying, 23% of Americans every month have late fees because they can't pay their bills on time. A lot of times it's just because they can't find the bills to pay them. That was kind of my mom's thing. It all just went into a drawer. And and then you couldn't keep track of it. It affects your physical health. And this is the part that I don't think people realize, is that UCLA Center on Everyday Life of Families did a 9-year study. And they went into people's homes. They had a group of families, and all the families that they worked with, the same families for 9 years. It was, dual income family, middle class, kids in school. And they studied the families, and they didn't just interview them and ask them questions. They actually measured blood pressure and cortisol levels. And they actually found that for women, all of these houses had a lot of excess stuff and clutter, that for women, being in a cluttered environment raised their cortisol levels, and it raised their blood pressure. And when they would interview the women, all the women that were surrounded by clutter would talk about feeling unhappy, feeling unfulfilled. And they found that for especially women, it affected their ability to make decisions. So clutter affects women more than men. Now there's like exceptions to every rule, right? Like, you may be married to someone who's OCD, so maybe it affects him more. But on average, neither am I.
I just have to throw that out there.
I have often wished that I was, but I'm not.
Our husbands are good friends.
Yes, they're very similar in some ways.
Yeah.
So
roommates in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some
see where some of those habits came from.
Yeah, there was some clutter going on there.
So it does impact women differently than men. And this is why I work with couples, and a lot of times I'm brought in by the women, and they'll say things like, he just like steps over the piles. Like it doesn't even bother him. And I have to say, it actually doesn't bother him. Like he probably doesn't even see it. So you have to sit down and talk to him, and he has to know how it makes you feel, because it doesn't bother him, because it does affect women differently than men. And also, just like pain, everybody's got a clutter threshold. So for like me, my clutter threshold is pretty low. Obviously, like there's a pile on the dining room table, and I'm like, my life is a mess. And then for other people, their clutter threshold's a lot higher. So, so that's other things that you have to keep in mind, especially if you're living with people. But that's some of the impacts that it has on you. But then there's also mental clutter, which is different than the actual physical stuff. And that has a whole different impact on you. And it also affects your, not just your mental health, but it can affect your physical health. So
explain that.
So I kind of feel like it's an easy way to explain what mental clutter is it's like your brain is like a computer, and there's like 80 tabs open at all times. And there's just too much going on because, part of it is the world we live in, right? We're always on our electronics. There's bells and whistles going off all the time. And so you end up with mental clutter. And mental clutter could also be something like monkey brain, where you just can't shut that brain off. So even at night when you're trying to go to sleep, you hear voices in your head about whether it's negative self-talk, I call that the bully of your brain, where you're like, ugh, you screwed that up today, or, whatever. Or you're constantly running your to-do list, or, your thoughts in your head aren't aligned with like your goals, and, or you're dealing always with like worst case scenarios, or your fears, or, all that stuff. So that's mental clutter. And that also affects your ability to make decisions. That overloads your senses. It affects your health. It stops you from being fully present, in life. And it just adds a lot of stress also into your life. And there is a connection between mental clutter and physical clutter. They're all connected in some way. So a lot of times when you clear the physical clutter, even if you just clear one corner, if your house is like really a disaster and you just clear one corner, and you have one corner where there's no clutter, and so it gives your eye a place to rest, that sometimes will help with the mental clutter too.
Well,
does that make sense?
Getting back to my kitchen drawers, okay, I'm just using that as an example, but every time I open a drawer, I stress out. And I think to myself, I have to fix that. So that stays in my file box.
Yep.
And how many times do I open that drawer?
A lot.
To look for something, right? I mean,
right.
I need a pen. I can't find a pen. Well, I can't find one in here either. Right? I'm looking, so even that I can see, where that sort of adds to that mental, how there's a correlation just between that, or your closet, you were talking about earlier about your clothes and your closet, going in there and you're in a hurry and you're trying to grab something, and
and you can't do it. You can't.
No, and you tend to wear the same things because it's just easy. Like, I'll just grab that because I don't,
because you don't have to think. Yeah. So the reason that most professional organizers start with the physical clutter first is because it's easier. And if you can clear the physical clutter, other things will follow. And usually the first thing that follows is when you clear the physical clutter, then it helps you mentally. Yeah. So it's easier to start with this stuff, and then you dive deeper into like, the mental clutter, getting rid of toxic people, like, but it's easier to
we have a lot to talk about too.
But it's
So-
much easier to start with your kitchen drawers.
Yeah,
than
I think we're going deep.
Yeah.
So I actually have a guest tonight that wants to talk to you about a situation and ask you a question. I'm gonna bring Carrie on to the stream here. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Dawn. Nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you.
So what is your question for Dawn?
So my question is, I have a partner who lost his parents and also a really dear friend, and he's really accumulated a lot of sentimental items, and his house is very tidy. Kitchen, living room, bedroom, very tidy. Even opening the cabinets. But there's this one room that is just so, we just can't go in there. There's too much. Too much stuff, too much emotion, too hard.
So you just don't ever go in the room. So it's just one of those
It's like
rooms.
you walk by it, and I think he tries to go in and he tries to, work through some of the stuff, but I think it's just too hard.
Yeah. So one of the hardest things to do when you're helping someone clear clutter is when you're dealing with stuff that's really, whether it's memorabilia or it's connected to a person that's passed on, there's a lot of guilt in letting go of something that belonged to someone who's no longer here. And so it makes it more difficult to let go of. It doesn't mean, though, that person should keep it forever. And because obviously, if, it has an energy, right? And so the energy that it's giving off in that house is not a good feeling because your partner doesn't even want to go in the room, right? And
I think it's overwhelming. I think he wants to try to figure it out, but I think he just walks in there and feels just overwhelmed. How do I even start?
That's always the biggest question, is how do I start? And when you're dealing with something like that, where I would start is, what would the room be if all that stuff wasn't in it? What
Good idea.
would the function of that room be? So does he want it to be a reading room? Does he want it to be a room where he hangs out with his friends? Does he want to put a pool table in there? Like, how does he really envision that room? If none of that stuff was there, what would be the purpose of that room?
Yeah,
and
that's a nice idea.
If you start with what the purpose of that room is, what he wants to use the room for, that's your starting point. And then you start with going through the bigger things first. If it's pieces of furniture, if it's not going to fit into that idea of the room, then it might be a lot easier for him to let go. And it doesn't mean that if there's a piece that's really special to him, and even if it doesn't fit into the idea of that room, that it can't go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But one thing when I'm working with people that have an emotional attachment to stuff like this, if they don't feel good, if they pick up an item, and it's a chair that was like their mom's, but they never even liked the chair, but somehow they ended up with the chair, it's like, no, the chair's got to go. Like, you don't want anything in your house that when you look at it, you're like, ugh, this was my mom's chair and I always hated that chair. And somehow I got it, You got to let go of the guilt because you don't want anything. You don't want anything in your house that's not going to make you feel good. So the first thing I would ask him is, what do we want to use this room for? Mm-hmm. If all this stuff wasn't in here, what would this room be? And then that gives you a starting point. And then it's easier to start with big things first, like the furniture.
I always write things down.
Right away. Memorabilia like letters and photos, that stuff's a lot harder. And he may not be ready to let go of any of that. And honestly, if it doesn't take up a lot of space, or you can also digitize stuff like that so that it could take up no space,
Right.
It's the bigger pieces that are harder. And part of it maybe too is that he doesn't just want to throw it out.
I think you want someone else to throw it out. Is really kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, or he just may want to know that it's going to somebody else who will use it and appreciate it. And that's different than just putting it on a curb or watching the garbage truck take it away.
Right.
So it may be, you know what? You don't love this chair. You don't love these pieces of furniture. It's not your style. It doesn't fit in with what you want the room to be. But I know a place that will take it, and somebody's going to love this. Like some college kid or some young couple starting their life out is going to think this is great, you know?
You would
And
really
that,
respond to that.
yeah. And then so that alone may help him let go of it because he knows that it's going to get life somewhere else. Does that help? Did I answer?
Yeah, I think that. I definitely think thinking about the space, what it could become, as opposed to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Because he does live in his parents' home, and I think that's a really hard thing for a lot of people.
It's really hard when you take over someone else's home to be okay with making it your own. But honestly, that's what they would want. You know, they don't want to have the home that they passed down to their son to be a mausoleum. Like they don't want it to be like, you know, they
Well,
want him
that depends.
Well, we're saying no.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, but you know, it's his home now, and he should find things in that home, you know, to do things in the home that make him happy. So, yeah, and that's one of the ways that you can let go is.
I think for everyone listening, like that's a great piece of advice. Is just not so much looking at what it was, but looking at what it can become, and maybe that lightens everything up just right there. And you're not being like judgmental. You're just saying, "Wow, we have a new project. This is going to be, you know, a fun opportunity."
Yeah, and if he's very visual and, you know, then go online, grab some magazines, rip out pictures, create a board, you know, and then as you're going through the stuff and he's like, well, what about this? You're like, well, that doesn't fit in with our vision. Look at the picture, you know, like that doesn't fit in. So, you know, some people are more visual, and if they have their goal in mind, then it helps them move through that stuff easier.
Oh, thank you, Dawn. That's wonderful advice. I really appreciate it.
Carrie, thank you so much.
Have fun. I love everything. I've already like got a whole page.
Yay!
Have fun, girls.
Have a good evening, Carrie. Thank you for being on the V Talks tonight.
Bye.
That was really good advice. It was such good advice, like actually having an idea for the room. So it's like a positive thing instead of focusing on removing things that he has that emotional attachment to.
Right. And, you know, he may not have such a strong emotional attachment to the stuff as he really starts going through it. But a lot of times, you know, you have this guilt that you're the person that got it. So now you have to hold on to it forever. And you don't, you know, if it's not serving a purpose, if it's not being used, if it's not making you feel good, then pass it on to somebody else who will, like, you know, give it its due.
No, I think that's really good advice. You know, I suffer from the same thing. You know, you've been in my house before, and you know that I have pieces of furniture in my basement and all sorts of things like dishes and china and things like that from my mother-in-law that I kept because she wanted me to have those things. And I still have them.
You have them.
And I still have them, but they're serving no purpose. You know, they're just in a box.
They're sitting, and they're sitting in the basement. And you and I have talked about this before. It's like, you know, if Chris doesn't want to keep them, if he doesn't have the sentimental attachment, then it's better to donate it to someone who will actually use it and treasure it. Because eventually it gets to the point where it's sat down there for so long collecting dust that it's, you know, it's no longer worth anything, you know, or it gets ruined. So it's okay to pass it on and give it new life. You could take a picture of it, you know, you really want.
I feel so guilty all the time too. You know, we talk about
it. I need
to get over it.
You need to get over it. Yeah. People keep stuff out of guilt all the time. And I feel like that's a big part of my job is helping people let go of the guilt to let go of the stuff, you know? like that's like, you have gifts sitting in your closet that someone gave you that you never liked. That's so not you. But someone gave me this. I can't let it go. Yes, you can. They're not even going to
Is
know.
it okay to regift?
That's a tough one. So I think it's okay to regift, but you have to be careful to know who you're regifting to.
That's true. That's true.
Because, you have to remember, oh, my mother-in-law gave me this, so I better not regift it to my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
So if you're going to not remember all of that,
Yeah,
then just donate it. Just donate it.
Good point.
I also am not a fan of giving stuff to girlfriends or family members because everybody has too much stuff already. So then you're just passing your guilt on to them. You're like, here, I found this and I thought it was perfect for you. And they're like, I don't want this. But now you've passed the guilt on to them. So unless it's like a friend who's like, oh, I really could use this. And you're like, you know what? I have that. Why don't I give that to you? Otherwise, donate it. There's so many organizations that could use the stuff that you have. There's shelters, there's, books, and schools take books and they take all kinds of things. And, Salvation Army, Goodwill. I know it's a little hard now with COVID to donate because a lot of these organizations are not taking as many donations as they used to, but they will again. So it's okay to, start your pile to pass on to all of those places soon. But yeah, be careful that your good intentions don't lead to clutter. And you don't have that much clutter. Yeah, it's hidden.
I have hidden clutter.
I know, I've seen it.
Yeah, I know.
I've been in your basement.
I know. You opened the doors and you're like, oh, Veronica, you're embarrassing me. Okay, so I know I'm your embarrassing friend, right? You're like, no. I know. No. I wish we could pull up one of my drawers right now because then it would make people feel like, oh, okay, it is bad.
That's next time. Next time we'll do a hands-on session.
That's right. Next time I'll get the stabilizer on my iPhone and we'll do a tour of all my drawers. So we are talking about different types of clutter, right? So we were talking about the physical clutter and the mental clutter and emotional clutter. Mm-hmm. And we were touching upon relationships. So can you dive into that a little bit?
Oh, that's a hard one. Yeah. So we all have people in our lives who just like the excess physical stuff don't necessarily add to our lives. Right? Like we all have someone in our lives, whether, if it's a family member, that's a little harder. But sometimes we have friends in our lives who we've outgrown, but we have a history with them. So there's guilt there. And we don't, even though when we're around them, maybe they don't even make us feel good about ourselves. But then you don't want to let them go because they're part of your past. So I feel like it's okay to cut toxic people out of your life. Just like it's okay to let go of excess stuff, it's okay to let go of people who are not truly adding to your life. And it's harder, but as you start working through clutter and you start with the actual physical stuff and then you deal with the emotional stuff, you'll find that it's a process. And then when you get to a certain point, you're like, oh my God, this person's clutter too. It's a little bit easier to cut them loose. And, I think, again, guilt plays such a huge, especially for women.
It does.
It plays such a huge role in our lives. But, life is short and you should be around people who make you feel good. And it doesn't mean that it's someone that's just blowing smoke up your butt. Like you want people around you who are honest, but there's some people who are just toxic and nobody needs that in their lives. And so I look at toxic people as clutter, and I have had friends in my life who I've had to, have a talk with and set them free. And it's really difficult, but I've never regretted it, because again, you just can't have that kind of energy in your life. So it's a little tougher to do. And every situation is different. I can't give you like, how do I get this toxic person out of my life? It used to be easier back in the days when you could just not return their calls.
Oh, yeah.
Now with
Wow.
social media and
It's-
texting,
Yeah.
it's a little, you could disappear before. You're like, oh, I moved and I changed my phone number. Woohoo, I'm free.
Yeah.
It's a little harder now. But it's, you know, it's just something to think about that, you know, you should really have people in your life who add to it, who make you feel good, who get you, who are honest with you, but also are not always bringing you down.
Yeah, I made a shift this year, and it was very difficult. I mean, extremely difficult for me to do, but it was the right decision for me because I decided that if people around me weren't supportive of me as I am of them, then that's not serving me anymore because I am so supportive of people.
You are.
I am. I'm all about the girl power. You know, like let's bring each other up. Let's lift each other up. Let's support each other. And that's who I am. And it's not to say that if somebody else isn't that way, they're not a good person. They're just not aligned with my views. And over time, I felt like things were eroding to a point that I just couldn't do it anymore. And I have to say, as difficult as it was, I feel very, very good now. And I've been able to manifest and do all the things that I wanted to do without feeling judged. Though I probably am still judged, but it doesn't affect me anymore. Now I don't care.
But also,
but it helped me. And I think it helped that person too, in a way, because clearly that person had issues with me, and I'm sure just my presence was affecting that person.
You weren't aligned.
No, and I want that person happy too.
To find it's the same thing when you let go of a relationship that's not serving you.
Yeah.
Just like with the physical clutter, you're making room for relationships and people who are more aligned with your life, with your morals, with your goals, with, so if your life is filled with toxic people who you're not aligned with, they're blocking the people that you are aligned with. So that's, another way to look at it is when you, many years ago, I had a girlfriend who I thought was a great friend, but she really wasn't. But I couldn't see it.
It's when you
for
find
a long
that
time.
Stuff out, it's very hurtful.
And it actually was another friend that helped me see it. And at the time, though, I felt like, but she's a good girlfriend, and I don't have a lot of close girlfriends. And what ended up happening was once I, shifted and said goodbye to that relationship, all of these amazing women enter my life.
It's so true.
It's like they just couldn't get past her,
Right. It was like the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
It was some weird thing. That's so interesting that you say that. I know you're a big energy person, and you're a Reiki master, right?
I'm not a master. I don't consider myself, I'm not a Reiki master. I don't teach Reiki or anything, but I do, I have like level 1 and 2 Reiki, and I do Reiki on myself and my family and my friends. But yes, I consider a Reiki master someone who can teach it, and I don't teach it.
But you're very attuned to energy, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to look at it this way, is that when you keep people in your life who you're not aligned with, who are not your people, you're preventing your people from entering. That person is blocking that. So, if you shift that person out of your life, it's hard and it can be painful, but eventually the right people find you.
It's true. It's very true. Like I said, I experienced it this year, and I think we're all better for it. All of us are better off.
And that person too. That person goes and finds the people that they're supposed to be with, that makes them feel better. So it's hard though. As women, we're very sensitive to some of that stuff. So it's hard. And we always want to care for people. So
I know, we're the same that way.
Sometimes we have to care for ourselves first.
I know. So now we've kind of identified the different types of clutter. Let's
Hmm.
talk about ways that we can solve the issues.
So there's definite steps
Yeah.
that you have to take when you're getting ready to clear clutter and get organized. And one of the reasons that this is an ongoing thing for people, is because they never truly finish the process. That's one of the reasons. Um, if you're living in a household with other people, I've seen women who like run themselves ragged, getting their entire house like organized, but then they think that they can keep it up alone, and you can't. Like, you have to teach it to other people within your family. And you also have to realize that, just like anything else in your life, it's something that you have to tweak over time, and you have to put time in to maintain. So the first step is always what I talked about with your spatula, is sorting.
Okay.
Whatever you decide you're going to focus on, and don't look at big picture. Don't say, I'm going to get my whole house organized. That's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Start with something small, like your kitchen drawers, right? I'm going to spend 2 hours just
On one drawer.
organizing one drawer.
One drawer.
One drawer.
They're deep.
Okay, they're very deep. One drawer. Or just your kitchen drawers. You have a big kitchen. You have a massive kitchen. Not everyone has a kitchen as big as you. But
I have big drawers that
You
have a
have-
lot
you
of
do.
stuff.
you do have
You know
very
how
deep.
bad it is when you open it and you can't get it open and you have to put your hand.
Stick your hand in there and push something
Push
down,
it down, or then you try and shut it and something fell down behind it.
and then it won't shut. Ugh,
It's so bad.
I have to
need
come in.
you.
I have
I
to
need
come.
you.
I have to
Sorry.
come and do a session with you.
I know. Okay, go
So
ahead.
just start small.
Yeah.
Start with, I'm just going to do my kitchen drawers. And you start with the sorting, and you sort all your like items together, and then you stand back and you look at it and you decide. And this is where what we talked about before, having a vision helps. If you should always, before you go in, have a vision of what you want the space to look like, and how you want to feel in the space, and how you want it to function. So even if you're like, you know what, today I'm just going to do my bathroom vanity. That's what I'm going to focus on today. How do you want it to look? How do you want it to function? And how do you want to feel when you're dealing with that piece? And if you keep those things in mind, then when you're sorting, the next phase, of course, is letting go. If those things don't fit in with any of those things that you want, it's much easier to let it go. And also, I have like basic rules. If anything's broken, it goes. If anything is worn down, it goes. Like, I know people are like, no, I'm going to fix it. It's like, no, you're not. No, you're not.
You're not.
We all think we're going to fix it.
You're not.
You're
Is there
not.
is there like a time limit that you say, like, is
So
it a year, or
if
is it
somebody-
6 months? Or
If somebody is really adamant, especially with clothing, no, I'm going to get it tailored. I'm going to get that zipper put back in those
5
jeans,
pounds.
right? I let them put it in a bag, and
Yeah.
I put a 3-month date on it. You have 3
Okay.
months. You have 3 months to get the button fixed, to get those pants hemmed, to get the zipper. If
Okay.
within 3 months it's not done, then it goes. Because again, that's kind of like the good intention leads to clutter. You have good intentions of getting it fixed, but then it just sits in the back of your closet for 2 years and it hasn't been fixed. So if it's broken, if it's worn, I usually say let it go. And if you absolutely can't let it go, you get 3 months. And after that 3-month date, if you still haven't, fixed it, it goes. So if it's broken, if it's worn, if you have too many, like, how many things do you really need? I had a client once where she had 30 tweezers.
What?
30.
Okay, that's
Because she
weird.
didn't know she had them, because she never could find them. So she kept buying,
Because they were in my kitchen drawer.
and they were everywhere. They were in a kitchen drawer. They were in a car. They were like everywhere.
That's
And so
funny.
she gathered them all, and she's like, I have 30 tweezers. I'm like, okay, well, how many do you realistically need? And she only realistically needed 3. And then the rest of it could go. So you have to really think about, what can you actually fit in your space? I think sometimes I have had clients who have moved to bigger spaces to fit their stuff. And guess what happens within a year?
Oh, I know. I know exactly
You
what
just
happens.
accumulate more stuff to fill the new space. So
Yeah, there's more room. There's plenty more room, plenty more drawers.
yep, and you just fill it. So the sorting is big. The letting go is another one. Letting go is hard sometimes, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. Just like everything else, let go of guilt trips. If you open your closet and you have clothing that still has tags on it, and every time you see that, you feel really crappy about yourself because you're like, I spent money on that, and now it's been sitting here for 3 years. Let it go. Nobody needs to look at stuff in their closet and feel guilty.
That's interesting that you say that, because it does trigger something with me. If it still has the tags on it, I feel guilty. Like, I bought that, the tags are still on.
And then every time you open your closet,
Yeah.
that's what you're feeling. You're not like, oh, look at my beautiful closet and look at my beautiful closet. You're like, look at that with the tags on it. Let it go.
Yeah.
Don't have anything in your closet that makes you feel guilty. If you wear something, even if it was a dress that maybe 15 years ago made you feel great, if you put it on now and you don't feel great,
Yeah.
let it go. Like, I know that a lot of women keep things because they're like, I just have to lose that 10 pounds. I'm okay with you keeping some things, a few things, really key things that you love, or, maybe that are expensive, that like your skinny jeans, keeping a pair. Look, we've all gained a little weight during the pandemic. It's going to go away once we're like out and about again. So it's okay. I'm not saying get rid of your whole wardrobe because you gained 10 pounds and start fresh. It's okay to keep a few things. But if you've, not been a certain size since high school and now you're hitting your 50s, it's time to let go.
Yeah.
And buy clothes that you feel good in now with where you are now. And I think we also hang on to things because of trends, because we're like, well, that could come back. But
Well, how many times does something come back and you're like, oh, I can't believe I got rid of
that's
that.
true. But
It's true.
also, I'm
Yeah.
looking back now as a child of like the late 80s and 90s, and there's certain things that even if it came back, am
They
I
shouldn't
really
have.
right? I'm not going to be wearing the big shoulder pads, even if they
Oh
come
no,
back.
the big, huge
No,
puff sleeves.
I'm not going to wear
I would look
neon.
ridiculous in that.
If neon comes back,
Oh
I'm not
no.
wearing it. Like, I'm beyond that.
I don't look good in neon.
Who looks good in neon?
I
Like,
don't know. Somebody must. It's not
someone
me.
must, but I never do either.
Yeah, no.
Like, so that's the other thing you have to think about. When trends do come back, and they do, they're always a little bit different, right? Like, they're tweaked a little bit. Like, I remember when even like flared pant legs came back. They weren't the 60s, 70s bell bottoms. They were just slightly flared. So,
Well, and the other piece to that too is you don't want to look like somebody that's still wearing the same jeans from that time period either. Like, a younger person can wear vintage and look cool. We just look like we never evolved.
we never evolved. We never updated our wardrobe.
No.
Yeah. So I think
that's a good point. That's
it's just about being
there.
honest with yourself and like who
Yeah.
you are now. I had a client once, and I get clothes and I get having like memories attached to
Yeah.
clothing. And I don't know if this is like, a woman thing, but I remember what I was wearing from my first kiss. Like, I remember what I was wearing the first time I danced with a boy. Like, I have very deep associations with clothing, and I know a
Okay.
lot of my female clients do as well.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you hang on to every little thing, And I had a client as we were going through this, and she was really successful. She's a fabulous businesswoman, but she was a club kid back in the days in New York City. And she had some crazy, fabulously wild clothes.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't let go of them. And so one day I'm like, let's just put it on then. Let's put on these jackets. And she put it on, and she was like, oh my God.
Sparkles.
Brr, like, yeah,
was it
like,
Studio 54 or
no,
what's
it
the
was
downtown
more,
Julie Brown? What was that?
yeah, it was more like
Palladium?
Palladium. It was more like
Palladium.
Limelight Palladium.
Yeah,
And
right.
once she put them on, she was like, oh
Oh,
God,
yeah, no.
and that's part of it too. Sometimes you just have to put it on and look at yourself in the mirror, and you have that moment where you're like, damn, I used to look so good in this.
Yeah.
This jacket got me in the door,
Right.
but now,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah,
So
no, yeah.
you just have to be realistic sometimes with yourself. I always tell people to try the clothing on when you're doing your closet because, even if you're the same weight, sometimes your body changes, even if you're the same weight, even if your waist is the same size. Like things just don't look the same on you that maybe they did 10 years ago. And
Sure.
then you don't feel the same in them either.
Right.
So if you don't feel great in it, it goes. Even if you have happy memories, take a picture and let it go. I'm a big fan of taking a picture.
Take a picture before you throw it out or like donate it
Yeah,
because
or
then you can
donate
go,
it.
yeah.
And sometimes I think also people hang on to things because they're like, oh, this could be worth something someday.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Sometimes old is just old. It's not everything that is old is going to end up being valuable. So if we hung on to every single thing that we thought was going to be valuable, we would all, have to have 15 storage units because not everything, even if it comes back, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be worth a lot of money. Sometimes old is just old. So, unless it's a designer, like very high-end designer piece, anything that you bought at Macy's or a store like that, it's even if you spent a lot of money on it, they don't really hold their value.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, it's not just clothing, it's like anything,
Sure.
Of course, original pieces of art by famous artists, that's a whole different thing. But other things, they just doesn't hold their value the way that it used to. China is one of those things, like crystal. People don't necessarily entertain that way anymore. So it's not as valuable now as it was. Silver is another one of those things, like sterling silver candlesticks. And like, you can't give that stuff away.
I have so much of it in boxes.
Because people don't entertain that way. And it's hard to keep it looking good. You have to polish it all the time. Like,
and
who has time?
I'm not going to do that.
No.
I have boxes and boxes of that stuff.
And
I just don't even know what to do with it. And beautiful, like ornate, like teapots from my mother-in-law and her her grandmother and her great-grandmother. They're beautiful.
Do you know where I donate some of that stuff with clients? Theaters.
Oh, yeah.
Theater companies, like, depending if they're doing period pieces and you've got like, like a sterling silver tray with the teapot. That's the kind of stuff that they use in theaters. So I donate to local theaters and community theaters. There's a place in New York called Materials for the Arts, and they take all that stuff, and then any nonprofit that's in the art realm gets to go in and shop for free. So that's the kind of places that I donate that stuff, because most of it does not have a value. So it's really easy to check online to see if your silver is worth anything. And if it's not, then, that's the kind of places that I donate client stuff to.
So basically we are to start small.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, you want me to start in a kitchen drawer.
Yep.
And start clearing the clutter. So those are things that we throw away.
Or donate or recycle.
Yes.
I don't love just throwing everything away.
But the things that are trash that are in my drawer, like paper.
Yeah.
And ripped old
pens that
receipts,
don't write anymore.
Pens that don't work. Start there.
Start with the easy stuff.
Okay. Yeah. And then the next phase. So I've thrown everything away out of my drawer that is trash.
Yep.
Essentially, it's not usable or fixable.
So then the next phase, and this is the phase that everyone just wants to skip to, which is the getting organized stage, is everything has to have a home.
Yep.
And it takes a little bit of time to figure out how to organize things. So for instance, in your kitchen drawers,
Yep.
it would make sense that the drawers closest to your stove and your oven would be where certain utensils go,
The one
where
spatula.
the
that I'm
one
going to have.
spatula, the wooden spoon.
The wooden
And
spoon.
that's when, once you get down to that phase, if you want to go get a cute drawer organizer from the Container Store, you're allowed. Once you know exactly what you're keeping and where you're going to house it.
You're so smart, because
If you
my
buy all
brain-
that stuff before,
my brain, yeah.
it doesn't work. It never works, because then you're like,
then you just organize your clutter.
right. And that's why people never finish the process, because you can't fit it all. Right? You're
But
like,
it's
this,
in a compartment, so it looks better.
right.
You
right.
already knew where my brain was going, because that's what I would have done, right? I would have gone to the Container Store, got my little, I would have gotten rid of all the trash, gone to the Container Store, and then organized the rest of the chaos in the drawer.
Right. And
in
you
a
should,
compartment.
you've got to clear it first. And then you
Okay.
also have to be realistic. So some people want that stuff in the drawer. Some people who cook a lot don't want it in a drawer. They want it like right next to them. So then,
Yeah.
so then
So
that's where the fun
sorry.
comes in. That's when you get
And
to play.
love.
It's live and we're ringing.
It's so yes, I don't know.
So yeah, that's once you get through the sorting and the clearing, and you really know what you're keeping, and you're realistic about what you're keeping, you're like, yes, I can keep this because I have room for it. Then you get to go think about, what can I get to keep it organized? And that's when, you can have fun with it. But you've got to do the other steps first. Otherwise, you're just organizing a lot of clutter. And eventually your system won't work, whatever system you put in place.
Huh.
So the sorting, the clutter clearing, then, the organizing, there's another step that we have to talk about quickly, because this is a step that everybody forgets, is that, look, we have busy lives. Everyone has a lot of things going on. Sometimes you don't put things back, right? You're busy and things don't go back into your system. And then a month of doing that, or 2 months or 3 months, and now you feel like you're back where you started. So one of the other things that I do with my clients is I create a maintenance schedule for them, where it's depending on their life. I have one client where every day she takes 10 minutes at the end of the day and she just puts stuff away. I have another client who says, like, I'm not going to do it every day. So every Saturday she gets up in the morning and she just puts everything back where it belongs. And that's another key step that people don't do is, you have your system, it's working, but you actually have to keep it up. And that's where, if I'm working with families, I'll say, to the head of the household, you've got to teach this system to your partner and to your kids. Like, everybody's got to be in on it. Can't just be you doing it. So that's another key step, which is the upkeep. Otherwise, you end up just where you started eventually. Right.
Right. Then you're doing the whole thing all over again.
And you're doing it all over again.
And you're stressed again and all of that. So that makes perfect sense.
So one thing that is a positive that comes out of doing the steps is that you become more aware and more conscious. So when you are out shopping, right, or just out and about, if you know what you have because you've already been through the process, you're less apt to buy stuff you don't need. So you become more conscious.
Because you're going to have to deal with it later.
Yeah. Yeah. So, suddenly you're like, you know what? Right now, everything fits in my closet beautifully. I know where everything is. Do I really need this pair of shoes? Like, I can't really fit it. If I bring in this pair of shoes, I got to let another one go. And I don't want to let any other ones go. So I guess I don't really need it. So it's like this domino effect that eventually you just become more conscious and you don't bring in as much clutter once you really go through the process and get, decluttered and organized. Mm-hmm. So it's like a positive, it's like a ripple effect.
Yeah, I love it. These are such good tips. And I feel better already. Like, I am ready to go attack that drawer this weekend.
You could always just ship me to Massachusetts.
Well, we're pretty much in lockdown here.
I know we are
As
too.
soon as that's over, I will get you here. I have taken your advice so many times. I remember one time I watched one of your videos or one of your shows, and you had organized a whole, a bookcase, and I went, oh, I'm gonna organize my bookcase, and I had it all like together by theme, and it was like all the shelves were together, and I had never really done that before because I've always, been amazed at how people have their bookshelves look so great, and I had done it, and I think I sent you a picture. I'm like, look what I did.
Yay!
I think you said it looked nice, even if it didn't. You said it looked good. Because you're a friend like that.
I'm a good friend, but I'm sure it looked
good.
good. It did look good. And more importantly, it functioned, right? Like it has to function.
It made a
too.
big difference because I just had, it was cluttery looking. And so every time I looked at it, I had stress. So I decluttered it.
Yay.
So Dawn, tell me, I know, because of COVID, things have changed a bit, but I'd love to hear what you're doing right now. We've got dawnfalcone.com on the ticker there that people can go to. What projects are you working on now? What are you working on in the future?
So I am working virtually with people. I do go into some homes, but it's not as much as what I was doing before.
Yeah.
But I am working virtually with clients. I'm helping clients declutter virtually. I am working with another organizer. We started something called the Moving Queens, and we are actually working with busy New Yorkers to help them through the moving process, because there's a lot of people moving right now, either moving out of New York or moving around within New York. So we come in and we do everything. We help them pack, we inventory everything, we'll declutter before we pack. I deal with the movers. My partner and I deal with all the movers so they don't have to deal with it. And then on the other end, we completely unpack and set everything up. And we both have backgrounds as organizers and designers. So we will hang your artwork for you, we'll accessorize, we colorize your closet, we set up the whole space. So we are doing that in the middle of the pandemic. And I actually did do this summer a virtual move, which was very interesting, but it worked. I helped someone move. I was her coach virtually and helped her through the moving process. So I am still doing what I'm doing. Some of it's in person and some of it is virtually. So.
And Dawn, is there a link on dawnfalcone.com to your moving business?
Not yet, but it's just the movingqueens.com.
Movingqueens.com. I know I didn't put it on the ticker.
It's okay. It's just the movingqueens.com. So if anybody in New York is moving, we would love to help make that process easier for you, because moving is always in the top 5 of the most stressful life things.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it's our goal to take that stress away from you. So we do it.
And then if somebody would like a virtual consultation with you to help clear their clutter, you can do that, right?
Yeah, you can go to dawnfalcone.com, and there's an email there, and my website has an email, has my phone number, and we do a call first, and so I can see what's really bugging you and how I can best help you. And then we come up with a plan, on how to start. I work with clients from all over the country through the magic of Zoom.
I know, it's really great, right? So they would just take their iPad or their phone and you would see it.
They show me all around and make them open the drawers just like I would if I was, there in person. Right. And and we do sessions, we actually break it down and we do sessions, and I, help them clear the clutter, and I'm there holding their hand virtually every step of the way.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you, my dear. It was lovely seeing you. This was so fun.
I
know, and I really appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you. This is a really great program. You have really good guests, and you have really great information on this. And I'm just happy that I came and I was able to share my thing with you. So,
well, you're going to help so many people. And now I'm inspired as well to clean my drawers.
I would like before and after pictures of your kitchen drawers.
I'll do it. You know I will. All right, sweetheart. So good seeing you.
Okay, bye.
Go kick the clutter.
I shall.
All righty.
Right,
Take
bye.
care. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's V Talks. I hope you enjoyed these wonderful tips from John Falcone, the Chaos Liberator. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty motivated right now to go clean my clutter. But anyway, have a wonderful evening, and I hope to see you all back next Tuesday at 7 p.m. for another V Talks. And until then, happy Mardi Gras and good night.